WHO Sportsline. Opinions expressed are those of the host, his guests, and callers. Tonight, call Johnny Orr, a special edition of Sportsline with Iowa State head basketball coach Johnny Orr. Brought to you by Iowa Des Moines National Bank, the Yes Bank for convenience with 5 Greater Des Moines area offices. Now, here's your Sportsline host, Jim Zabel.
This is Mike Lee filling in for Jim Zabel. This is Call Johnny Orr night, and we have plenty of lines open here if you want to talk to Iowa State's head basketball coach. The local number for Des Moines and suburbs surrounding Des Moines is 282-5111, and the toll-free Watts line within the state of Iowa, 1-800-532-1111. If you're calling outside the state, and we encourage you to do so because the sun has gone down, and I suppose you listeners outside the state of Iowa might want to talk to a former Big Ten coach who is now in the Big 8, Johnny Orr. The area code here in the city of Des Moines is 515, and then dial 282-5111, which will put you in on the local line. We've got some calls lighting up already, John, so let's go to them right now. You want to talk about Hubbard?
Yeah, Johnny, how's Phil Hubbard getting along? Has he ever gotten back to 100%?
Oh, he's back now, and I think he's probably right now playing better than anyone the Pistons have. He's playing very, very well and doing a good job. And I'll tell you, Hubbard's big thing, he was injured. I think had he not been injured, would have been probably the player of the year one of the last 2 years he was in college. He got that injury, and they drafted him too early. He wasn't well yet and everything, and now he's come around, but it's been about 3 or 4 years since the injury, and he's playing just super for the Pistons right now.
So he's back to where he was before he got injured, you think?
I think he is. I have not seen him, but from everything I read, and I follow him as closely as I can in the papers, he's back to pretty much back to normal and even playing better, I think.
That's good to hear. Well, good luck and see you later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The Pistons need all the help they can get right now, John.
Well, they need a little more than that, I think.
Hi, you're on Sportsline. You want to talk about the Iowa boys on the Western Illinois team. Go ahead.
John.
Yes, sir.
What was your assessment of the Iowa boys on the Western Illinois team?
Well, I thought they did a pretty good job. I thought, if you want to know just how I feel about him, I thought Dykstra was a very fine shooter. And he shot very well in the second half against us, and a fine young man. I thought Garlick, he looked like a good athlete and everything. He scored 5 for 6, but most of them were in a transition game, and it was hard to tell. But he seems like a good athlete. Lilly, I thought he pressed a little and everything, but we knew he was a good shooter. We knew he was a fine, fine shooter. And Hutchison, the freshman, I think he's like a freshman. He did a good job for a freshman, and I think in that caliber of competition, he'll be a very fine basketball player. So I thought they made a good account of themselves, very good account.
Well, I have another question in regards to that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to put you on the spot.
No, that's fine.
Do you think any of those men could play Big 8 basketball?
Oh, I don't know. That would be hard to say. Someone asked me, I think Bob Earl asked me, or Jeff Bimeford the other night, if I thought they could make my team, and I really don't assess it like that. I didn't pay that much attention to them. You know, whether they're from Iowa or not didn't really matter to me. Just wanted to win the game, but I was certainly impressed with their play and those players, and I think they're wonderful young men, and I think they probably made the right decisions going to the school they went to.
Okay, sir?
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Johnny Orr on the line. The number is 282-5111 for Des Moines and suburbs surrounding Des Moines. Toll-free Watts line, 1-800-532-1111, calling outside the state. The area code is 515, then 282-5111. This lady wants to talk about Darnell Valentine, who is going to be a thorn in your side. I wonder, John, if she has a question here about who's going to guard Darnell Valentine. If she doesn't, I would like to ask it. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yes, Coach Orr, first of all, I just want to tell you that I think you're doing a terrific job this year at Iowa State.
Thank you very
And
much.
I would like to know if you think Darnell Valentine is the ball player that the press has played him up to be for Kansas.
I think Darnell Valentine is certainly the key to Kansas' team. And whether he scores or not, he's still a valuable player to them. And the other things he does defensively, handling the ball and penetrating and feeding off to those players, I think he's a great player. When I was at Michigan, I visited Darnell Valentine and spoke at his high school athletic awards
Oh, you
banquet
did?
and tried to get him to come to the University of Michigan, but didn't have any success. But I think if he hadn't gone to Kansas, he'd have gone to North Carolina.
You think so, huh?
I certainly do.
Will Lefty be guarding him then on Wednesday?
I think he probably will.
Well, I think he'll do a good job. He's
Oh,
been
I do
doing-
too. I have great faith in Lefty, and he's done a superb job for us. I couldn't be happier with a young man than I am with Lefty.
Yeah, he's really done a good job, and so have you, Coach Orr.
Thank you
Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling, ma'am. Okay, she had the question I wanted to ask, and so you've answered it. Lefty Moore is going to be on Darnell Valentine tentatively for Wednesday night. Hi, you're on Sportsline. You've got a question for Coach Orr.
Coach,
Yes, sir.
this is Morford from Clarion. I
Yes.
want to know whether you're related to Orville Orr, who graduated, I think, out of Cedar Falls Teachers College those days, and he's living in California.
I don't think I am. I might be. There are not many Orrs, you know.
Well, there was at one time.
Were there?
Yes, their
Well-
pictures are on the wall down there in the old gym. And
Really? Well, I don't think I am. Most of my family were coal miners.
oh, they come from. Well, I don't know where he hailed from.
Yeah, and their background is mostly in the coal mining business. And I'll be honest with you, in my family, I think I was the first Orr to ever go to college
Well,
because they were all coal miners. And until athletics came along, that's what I was going to be too, to be honest with you.
he was a wrestling coach,
Oh,
and he knew how to fight too.
did he?
Yeah.
Well, most of my parents and relatives and everything knew how to do that pretty well too.
Okay, and thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the call. We've got a question, John, about recruiting. Don't know what specifically the question might be about. Hi, you're on Sportsline.
Yeah, I'd like to know what your chances are in recruiting Todd Birkenpass, and if you could give us some other names and some top prospects. You might.
Well, I can't give you names.
Okay.
I hope you forgive me for that.
Yeah.
But we're certainly interested in Todd Birkenpass. We think he's a great player. We think he could come here and play for us right away. And we would love to have him come here. He's a wonderful young man. He's an excellent student. And his dad's his coach, and his mother, Joyce, are good friends of mine. And we're doing everything legally that we can possibly do to get Todd Birkenpass to come to Iowa State.
All right, sir. Thank you for the call. We are going to take some breaks right here, John, and you callers stay on the line. We'll be back with you. The numbers to call, 282-5111, the local line for Des Moines and towns and suburbs surrounding the capital city. Toll-free Watts line, 1-800-532-1111. Out-of-state callers, area code is 515, then 282-5111. We'll be back in a moment.
Recently, we've all been seeing a lot of advertising concerning Now accounts. And just in case you find all this confusing, the Yes Bank would like to take a moment to set things straight. First of all, Now is an abbreviation for Negotiable Order of Withdrawal, but it's really and very simply just like interest-bearing checking. Both banks and savings and loans can offer Now accounts and pay 5.25% annual interest on the daily balance. There is no difference in Now account interest rates between banks and savings and loans. So why choose the Yes Bank and our Now account called Interest Plus Checking? Because what's really important are things like know-how, technology, convenience, and experience. Let's face it, when we're talking about your money, experience counts, and that makes Interest Plus Checking a real value.
Yes, about the Yes Bank, 'cause yes, we're number one. You can count on your Yes Bank to rep the Iowa Des Moines. Yes!
Member FDIC.
This is a special edition of Sportsline. Call Johnny Orr. The UPI Board of Coaches poll just came out a few minutes ago, John, and Michigan, your former team, is number 8 in the nation, the highest-ranked Big Ten team in the top 20, at least according to UPI. Iowa is 16th. Indiana and Minnesota close out the top 20. Would you like to comment on Michigan this year?
Well, I think that's terrific. Bill Frieder's done a great job, and I left him with a good team. They're a veteran team, and he's done an outstanding job with them, and I think they deserve that rating. I'm pleased as I can be for them. They're a great bunch of young men, and I think when I came to Iowa State, my biggest concern was leaving my team.
Well, they're doing all right, just
They're doing
fine.
okay. They're probably doing better without me.
We've got another question, Coach, about recruiting. Hi, you're on Sportsline.
Coach,
Yes, sir.
this is Jerry Paduska from Forest City.
Jerry, how are you?
Well, good. How are you?
Good. Nice to hear from you.
Well, I got a couple questions on recruiting. You talked about the young man from Illinois possibly coming to Iowa State, and he went to Fresno State.
Yeah?
Just lost him, huh?
Broke my heart, Jerry.
Okay.
I don't understand it.
Okay.
I called him and talked to him last night, and I just was sick. He told me he didn't know why he was going, and no reason or anything.
Uh-huh.
Just made me sick.
Two other questions. How many scholarships do you have for next year? And is there any chance in the future of getting a holiday tournament down in Ames?
Well, on the first one, we're going to have 6
Okay.
scholarships available. I think we could have a tournament here, depending on how things go, Jerry. The biggest thing is you've got to have someone to finance that, you see, to make sure that you're not going to lose a bundle of money on it.
Mm-hmm.
And the guarantees to get good teams into here would have to be tremendous. You see, where we're going to tournaments now, we're making in the vicinity of $15,000, $20,000, and to bring it 4 teams in here at $15,000, that's $45,000. 3 teams as our guest, right off the top, you see, and so we have to fill that arena 2 nights in a row. And,
I see.
And I don't know if it'd really be worth it or not.
Okay, well, let's finish in the top of the Big 8 so we can get that first playoff game at home.
Well, that's our goal.
All right.
And I hope we can do it. I really do. If we can get up there, why, we got a shot to go to Kansas City.
You bet. Good luck to you, Coach.
Okay,
Okay, bye.
Thanks for calling. Another call, John, about recruiting. It might cover the same topic. I don't know. You're on Sportsline.
Johnny.
Yes, sir.
Carl Pangood calling from Ames.
Carl, how are you,
I'm
bud?
fantastic. How's the hot tub?
It's terrific.
Is it?
Yes, sir.
Good. Isn't it great being a Cyclone?
It's tremendous, Carl. I've never been happier in my life, I don't think.
Well, it looks that way. I a lot of times, spend my time watching you instead of the game.
Well, I'm just pleased as I can be, and if we could get a win or 2 this week, then I'd be even happier.
Well, this fall, Donnie Duncan had his picnic down at Iowa City.
Yeah.
And Friday night, Nichols had his picnic.
I know he did.
And you just wait. Your picnic's coming.
Well, I hope so.
It won't be very long.
I hope so.
Tell me a little bit about Gary Cook. I'm awful impressed with Gary.
Well, Gary Cook is our assistant, and he's in charge of our recruiting program right now, and he's been on the road almost every day, and he's done an outstanding job, and I would really be amazed if we didn't land a couple of top-notch players in the Chicago area that Gary has recruited. I have not talked to any coach that has not been impressed with Gary, and he's a tremendous guy. He has a lovely family. If you met his family, his wife and his daughters, Colleen and Cindy, they're just super, super people, and we're just happy as we can be to have him here at Iowa State.
Does he recruit any area other than Chicago?
Well, he recruits all over.
Okay.
and he sets up the recruiting schedule, and then Charlie and I help him out a little bit. So recruiting is an all-staff thing, and it's very difficult job, but he's done an outstanding job, and we're just elated to have him with us. And I think that once we get this program turned around in 3 or 4 years, you'll see Gary Cook getting a job in a major university in the United States and doing one heck of a job.
Well, how about them clones, huh?
Well, I like them. I was elated Friday night, weren't you?
Good talking with you, Johnny.
Okay, Kyle.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for the call. And, John, we are going to get back to Michigan once again. Perhaps somebody here would like to put you on the spot. I don't think they would intentionally do that, though. They want to talk about the Michigan team and how it's going to match up to the Iowa Hawkeyes. You're on Sportsline. Talk to Johnny Orr.
Hi, John.
Hi there.
I was wondering, for Iowa to go up there to Ann Arbor and come out of there victorious, would you say the key to that would be for them just to dominate the boards completely, or...
I don't think I was going to do that.
Well, what do you think they have to do to go up there and win, then?
Well, I don't... They've got to play awfully well, I think, to beat Michigan at Michigan, and I don't say they couldn't do that. Before the Big Ten season, I think I told Frieda that I thought Iowa was going to beat him. But now that the Big Ten season started, in the last 2 games I've seen the Hawks play, I've changed my mind. And I would be amazed if they beat them there. The big advantage that the Hawks have coming into Michigan is this. Michigan plays Indiana on Thursday night. And as long as I was at Michigan, that was the big game. And there is going to be the possibility that they would overlook the Hawks a little bit. And if they'd sneak in there on them and get them, that'd be good. But while I was there, I think in the 12 or 13 years, I think the Hawks only won there twice. And it'll be a very difficult job. But I think the Hawks are capable if they get back playing like they were before Christmas.
And also, one final question here. Comment on Purdue's quick start. Are they just... think they're going to come back down once they get on the road? Or?
Oh, well, I think they will, but I'll tell you what. Purdue, now I'm going on what Bill Frieder told me. I talked to Bill, and he told me, like, they have 4 guys of their top 6 back. And if you recall, they slaughtered the Hawks, in the NCAA for 3rd place. And 4 of those guys are back. Joe Barry Carroll is gone, and Hillman is gone. But they've replaced him with Russell Cross. And Frieder told me he was more impressed with Russell Cross than he was with Joe Barry Carroll.
John, if I might break in here, somebody called me back up in September and asked me who was going to finish on top in the Big Ten in basketball, and I said Indiana and Purdue, and they acted relatively surprised. But when you look at the Purdue team from last year, you realize that the entire team didn't revolve around Joe Barry Carroll, and even if it did, they have a pretty good backup now. They've got somebody coming along, like you say, Russell Cross, who is doing a terrific job for them.
Well, Mike, when you bring a freshman in and he's your leading scorer and leading rebounder on a team that has 4 veterans back, you got a pretty good team. And Frieder said he looks like a junior or senior. He told me he just was a tremendous player. So I think Purdue will be a factor. There's no question in my mind about it.
Right. Lee Rose didn't leave him high and dry at all when he left.
Oh, no.
All right. Thanks a lot there, John.
You're welcome.
Thank you for calling. The lines, for the most part, are open, folks. 282-5111 is the local line for the city of Des Moines and towns and suburbs surrounding the capital city. If you are calling outside Des Moines or some of the towns surrounding it, within the state of Iowa, 1-800-532-1111. If you're listening to us outside the state of Iowa, and you're listening to Sportsline on WHO Des Moines, by the way, we are talking with Iowa State basketball coach Johnny Orr. If you want to talk to the coach, area code 515-282-5111. While our technical director, Tom Days, is putting the subject of some of these calls up on the board, John, I would like to ask you, are you surprised about how the Big 8 teams in preseason play are faring so far? It's just a fantastic record, especially Oklahoma State, which has been the surprise of the Big 8 so far.
Well, I predicted that, Mike, before the season. I'm not that familiar with them. and just going over them. But I'll tell you, Kansas right now I think is one of the top 10 teams in the United States. Kansas State should be right in the top 20, certainly in Missouri, and I think Oklahoma State too. It's very difficult for us to get enough votes to be in those polls like that, but I think the Big Eight has shown you so far that they're coming up in basketball, and I think in the next year, 2, 3 years, you're going to see us right back on top again.
John, an interesting point by Wayne Grett in his article in tonight's Des Moines Tribune. He's quoted you as saying that Kansas beat North Carolina, and yet North Carolina is still rated. And as you say, there just aren't enough votes out there.
That's right, and they lost again, you know, to Virginia. And I haven't looked at the ratings, I haven't seen them, but I imagine they're still rated. And you'll always have 3 or 4 ACC teams rated because they have so many votes.
It's the halo effect, you might say. They're looking at past experiences and then forgiving them for what happened now.
Well, that's right. You won't see Old Dominion rated, but they went in and beat DePaul at DePaul, see? And you won't see USC rated, and they beat UCLA at Pauley Pavilion, which those are unbelievable accomplishments. Believe me, they are. And it's just absolutely amazing, but it's like everything else, you know. You get the reputation built up, and then you just hang in there whether you win or lose.
Right, the halo effect. We've got a call, John, about Iowa State's schedule. Hi, talk to Johnny Orr.
Yeah, Johnny, congratulations on a fine year so far.
Thank you, sir.
I was wondering, I've read, you know, when you first came here and that, like, in the near future, are you planning on, like, bringing the top 20 teams into Hilton for your preseason games and maybe getting rid of little Wisconsin schools and stuff like that?
Well, we've gotten rid of most of them already.
I see.
And we're going to bring you in here. We're going to bring Texas in here. We'll bring Indiana in here, Minnesota, and we're hopeful to bring some others too.
Oh, that sounds real good. I got one more question. Are you in favor of expanding the NCAA tournament from 48 to 64 teams?
I definitely am not in favor of that. No, sir. In fact, if I did anything, I'd cut it back.
Could you tell me why?
Because I think it loses a little of its prestige.
Okay, I certainly agree with you. I do. Okay, thanks a lot, Johnny.
Thank you for calling. John, don't you think now that there are enough teams with good ball players that deserve to be in the tournament?
No, I don't agree with that, Mike.
Don't think so.
No, sir.
I've heard that theory proposed before. I've never known what to think of it, really.
Well, I think that should be the greatest honor you can have, and I don't think it should be awarded to everyone. I think that should be excellence. And you take last year, I was one of those teams in the Big Ten that was invited to the NIT, and you take Iowa, they finished 4th in the Big Ten in a tie for 4th. And I don't really feel that if you're down there, I think the Big Ten champion or the Big Ten runner-up, okay. But I'm not in favor of having 7 teams from one league and like 5 or 6 from the ACC.
But the argument could be brought up, John, that look how far Iowa went, look how far UCLA went.
Well, yeah, and UCLA finished 4th or something. See, you can get lucky in the tournaments, you know.
Depending on what regional you go into.
You go in the regional. The year I went to the finals, they sent us out in the Midwest regional. And we'd have gone to the Mideast regional, it would have been much more difficult. But I'm not concerned with that, really. Whatever they do, I do. I coach them. If they say 64 teams, that's good. If they say 48, okay. 32, okay. But myself, I'm not in favor of that. I think your team should be judged on what they do over the whole year, not in the tournament. And I don't think a team that finishes 5th in the Big Ten or 5th in the Pac-10 or 4th should be allowed to win the national championship.
All right, enough said about that. Another question, John, about scheduling. You're on Sportsline. Talk to Johnny Orr.
Yeah, John.
Yes.
The thing I'd like to ask you is that in the past few years we've played Creighton home and home. Are you going to continue to play them?
Yes, sir. We're not going to play them next year. But we are going to continue that, hopefully. I think they have a fine team, and I like Tom Apke. I think he's a fine coach, and I think that's a good thing for us. It's close by, and it's a good rivalry. We had a good crowd for that game, and I think we draw well over there as we get our program going. So I'm hopeful we'll continue to play Creighton home and home.
Do you think that playing Creighton will help the basketball program?
Oh, yeah. Creighton's basketball program is pretty good. In fact, it's better than ours right now. Hopefully we're going to get better than them, but right now I wouldn't say that we are.
Okay. Do you also, I wanted to ask you, if you, do you think it's an advantage, like for instance in the Big Ten, if you win the Big Ten, you almost automatically go to the Mideast Regional. Do you think that there is an advantage to coming in like second place so you don't have to play in that tough regional?
You're darn right I do.
Okay, now how about the Big Eight? If you win the Big Eight, you usually go to the Midwest.
Yeah.
Do you think that's an advantage?
Well, they're putting the Metro Conference in here now, and I wouldn't say that's an advantage.
Well, you know, for years people have been saying how easy the Midwest regional is, but if you look at it last year, that's where the title champion came from.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I think that changes. That changes every year. I think if I had my choice year in, year out, I'd rather go out east.
Okay, I'd like to ask you one other thing. What makes, I mean, I listen to cable and watch cable on TV, and the guy that does the basketball show for them said the other night that he thought that regardless of who had who for players in the country, that he thought right now that Russell Cross is the best player in the country. And if so, what makes him so good as a freshman?
Well, I do think Russell's a great player. But I wouldn't say Russell Cross is the greatest player in the country. That guy hasn't seen them all. If you see Sampson, I'm sure he's going to press you as one of the greatest players in America.
Yeah, I've seen him, and I really am impressed with him. I think he's a tremendous player.
Well, I think he's a fabulous basketball player, and I think there's some other players around right now that are better than Russell Cross. I think eventually Russell possibly could be the best player in the country. But I wouldn't say that yet. I think that's a little early judgment on his part. You got to wait and see what they do. You know, you say Magic Johnson, he was the best player. And there's no doubt about that. Magic Johnson, he was the greatest player. He took them from a nothing team to the Big Ten championship. Then the next year took them and made them the national champions.
Sir, we've got to hang up. We've got a call from Durham Wheat Country, North Dakota. Devil's Lake, North Dakota, to be specific. Johnny, the question concerns recruiting. Hi, you're on Sportsline. Glad you could join us tonight.
Hello, Johnny.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm a former letter winner at Iowa State, and I've got a question to ask you.
Yeah.
I would like to have a little clarification from you. I keep hearing you say over and over and over again on Sportsline, we got a good ball club this year, but boy, just wait a couple years and see what we've got then. Are you telling us that Johnny Orr is at Iowa State and the horses are soon to come? I haven't had a chance to recruit. Wait, let me recruit next year, watch them play the year after that? Or are you telling us the kids we've got now have got to learn a system, and these kids are good ball players, it's just going to take them a couple years to develop?
No, I'm elated with the way my team has played and the things that they have done and the things they're doing for us. And hopefully in the next year or two, we're going to get more and more talented players and really become strong contenders, not only the Big Eight, but in the nation. And I think that's going to take us some time. I think right now my team is playing up to their abilities and even beyond their abilities.
Okay, but what problems do you have? For example, Lynn Nance comes into Iowa State. Two things. First of all, people in other areas of the country have not heard of Iowa State nor Lynn Nance, but they have heard of Johnny Orr. Now you have to sell Iowa State to them. What problems does that create for a Johnny Orr?
Well, it creates a lot of problems. There isn't any question about that. Primarily because we have not been good. And we've got to go out and sell them on our program and prove to them that we are going to be good. That we're going to have basketball. We have a commitment to basketball here now. And our basketball program is as good as anybody in the country. We have as good a facility as anybody. Our training table facility is the finest. There's none any better. Our dormitories are as good as anyone's in the country. And we've just got to get out and get kids to visit here so they can see that. And we've got to convince them that we're going to go and be a major college basketball power here at Iowa State.
Okay, now my last question is...
Sir, we've got... Sir, I'm sorry to cut you off. We have other calls that are waiting on the line, and I thank you for calling from North Dakota this evening, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. And this call's been waiting for a while. I believe, John, that we have some disagreement about what you said concerning the number of teams entering the tournament. You're on Sportsline.
Good evening, gentlemen. Yeah, I do disagree with what the coach said about the number of teams in the tournaments. I think when you have conferences like the Big Ten and the ACC, which in my mind are the two best conferences in the country in college basketball, I think it is fair to allow that many teams to play in tournaments because the conferences are so strong that there are that many teams that are qualified to play.
Well, how strong do you think Michigan State, Northwestern, Wisconsin basketball teams are? Huh?
All right, admittedly, they're not as good as the rest of the conference.
Huh?
But the 7 other teams, I think we're all
Well, but don't say the whole conference is that strong, say, because they're not. And that isn't true.
Okay, let me ask you this. Is it fair to penalize teams who have played super basketball all season? Is it fair to keep them out of the tournaments just for an arbitrary reason of only taking the top 1 or 2 teams from the conference?
Well,
if they're qualified to play, is it fair to keep them out for an arbitrary reason?
I don't think it is, but I wish there was some way you could rate them, and if you rate and take the rated teams and could do it fairly, although I don't think the ratings are fair at all. I'm going to be honest with you. I rated the teams, and I tried to be as fair as I could. And yet I think I must have been prejudiced at times, but I just can't think that we can just have 48 or 64 teams going into the NCAA. I'm going to tell you honestly what it is. It's money. And we're having more teams because there's more money. And it's worth $1 million to you. It's going to be worth $1 million to win that NCAA in a year or two. And that's what it's all about, and that's unfortunate, to be honest with you.
I think I would agree with you that 64 teams is going a little too far, but I don't think 48 is really unreasonable.
No, well, I don't disagree. Like I say, they can do anything they want. That isn't my business. If I was doing it, they wouldn't have that many. But I don't have anything to say about it, so if they have 48, fine and dandy. If they have 62 or 64, that's fine with me. If they have 120, that's fine too.
Sir, thanks for calling. We have some lines that have been waiting for a while, and we thank you for your patience in waiting. This is WHO Des Moines. You're listening to Sportsline. And we've got a call here that's been waiting for a while about Michigan, specifically Michigan attendance and why it went down. Thank you for holding.
Hi, Coach.
Yeah.
How are you?
Fine.
Good. Say, I was looking through one of my basketball weeklies here, and I noticed that last year Michigan attendance went down 3,905 per game, 15 home games. What was that?
Well, that
had a pretty good team last year.
That wouldn't surprise me. Michigan is very strange on that, and unless you're right up there in the running in the top 10 or something like that, the attendance isn't good.
So you kind of spoiled them up there, huh?
Well, no, but their fans are... Michigan is so used to winning, and they expect to win. And unless you really excel, you have some great fans at Michigan. Absolutely phenomenal fans. But you don't have the number of them or anything like you have here. I've never been treated anywhere or seen any coach treated like I've been treated here at Iowa State. There's no coach in America treated as well as I am here. And it's a tremendous feeling, particularly coming from a place like Michigan. It's so dominated by the football program.
Thanks for calling, okay? We've got some other calls we need to get to. All right. Line 4. You're on Sports Line. You've got a comment about Iowa shouldn't be in the Final Four. At least that's what it says on the board. Could you get specific on that, sir?
Yes. I wanted to say to Coach Orr, I disagree with him on that because I think what he's forgetting is that when Iowa lost and finished its fourth in the Big Ten, they lost all those games without their best player in Ronnie Lester. And the same thing even when they were in the Big Final Four, the 2 games they lost, again, Ronnie Lester did not play all of the one game with Louisville or with Purdue in the end. And I think, that made a big difference if he had been able to play in the Big Ten.
There's no question about that. I said before the Big Ten season even started that if Ronnie Lester had been well and Mike Woodson had been well, then the Big Ten would have been a 2-team race between Iowa and Indiana. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
Yes, well, that's all I wanted to say about it. And also, the year before when Michigan State came on to win again, they didn't do that good in the Big Ten to start with necessarily, but...
They won it, though.
Yes, they did win it. That's true. But again, they really developed in the end, towards the end of the season, and sometimes this can happen to teams. And also, don't you think, like, when in the Big Ten or, say, any conference, if these teams knock each other off all the time, they can look worse in the ratings than they really are.
Well, I don't think that should have any effect on the ratings.
Well, no, but don't...
It does.
That's what I mean, it does. And that's not fair, really.
Oh, yes. Hey, listen, don't think I'm not a promoter of the Big Ten, because I certainly am. I spent 13 years there.
Yes, I know you did.
And I loved it. And I think the competition is tremendous.
And I'm glad to see you come to Iowa and Iowa State, and I'm sure that you'll really improve the program there, and I just want to say welcome.
Well, thank you very much. But I don't ever forget, I think Ronnie Lester last year, had he been well, could very, very well been the most valuable player in the Big Ten Conference.
John, we've got a call about recruiting on Sports Line on this very special program. Talk to Johnny Orr. Hi.
Hi, John. I'd like to ask you about two of the kids from Iowa this year. First one is regarding Ardell Prinz. Last year, you recruited the big kid out of Canada, Antonitis, who came in to Michigan, being quite a ways away from playing. Presumably, Prinz is quite a ways from playing at the major college level. How does he compare to, say, Antonitis talent-wise?
I've never seen Prinz play.
Oh, okay.
So I can't tell you that. And be honest with you, from what my coaches tell me, he's a prospect. And that's the same thing. I saw Antonitis play. I saw him only one time. But I did not think he was going to come in, and we told him, and we told his coach, that we did not think he could come in right away and play. And I don't think I've ever lied to a recruit about something like that. If I don't think they can do it right away, I tell them. And I've lost a lot of players like that. My assistants used to get very mad at me at Michigan because they said I was too honest. But I think in the long run, that's going to help you.
Okay, second one is about Todd Birkenpass.
Oh, he can play.
How does Todd's ability compare to a couple super guards up in your old stomping grounds in Michigan, guys like Eric Turner or Sam Vincent? I don't know if you've seen them
Well,
play.
now let me tell you, before we say anything about that, Eric Turner and Sam Vincent are probably the two best high school guards in the United States. And I don't think anyone would dispute that at all. You're talking about fabulous, fantastic, super fantastic players. I think Todd Birkenboss is a blue-chip player. He's a big-time player. And I think he can play whether he comes to Iowa State or Iowa or Duke or Stanford, wherever he goes. I don't think there's any doubt that he's going to play. And but I wouldn't compare him at this point with Sam Vincent or Eric Turner, primarily on the basis of the competition being played.
Well, what would you say Todd's top assets and top liabilities are at this point?
Well, I'll tell you, the competition would probably be the liability. But his assets are, he can do the fundamental things. He can dribble, he can pass, he can shoot, he can run, he can jump. And he can play defense. He can do the fundamental things a basketball player has to do. He's had great coaching because of his dad. And he's a definite blue-chip prospect.
Would you say he's up to level? Would you say he's as good a prospect as maybe Steve Carfino was coming in?
Oh, I definitely think so.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thanks a lot, Coach.
Thank you for calling. John, we've got to take a break here, and you callers out there listening to Sportsline Talk to Johnny Orr, your chance to get in and talk with Iowa State's basketball coach. 282-5111 is the local line. All of the local lines are open, folks. Toll-free Watts line in the state of Iowa, we have an opening there, 1-800-532-1111. If you're listening outside the state of Iowa, feel free to give us a call. Somebody from Devil's Lake, North Dakota did. Area code here is 515, then 282-5111. Back to take your calls after these important messages.
Recently, we've all been seeing a lot of advertising concerning Now accounts. And just in case you find all this confusing, the Yes Bank would like to take a moment to set things straight. First of all, Now is an abbreviation for Negotiable Order of Withdrawal, but it's really and very simply just like interest-bearing checking. Both banks and savings and loans can offer Now accounts and pay 5.25% annual interest on the daily balance. There is no difference in Now account interest rates between banks and savings and loans. So why choose the Yes Bank and our Now account called Interest Plus Checking? Because what's really important are things like know-how, technology, convenience, and experience. Let's face it, when we're talking about your money, experience counts, and that makes Interest Plus Checking a real value.
Yes, about the Yes Bank, 'cause yes, we're number one. You can count on your Yes Bank to rep the Iowa Des Moines. Yes!
Member FDIC.
This is Sportsline with Iowa State coach Johnny Orr. He's on the line. We've got some calls on the line as well. I don't know which one we should take, actually. Okay, fine. You're on Sportsline.
Yeah, I was wanting to talk to Johnny about Ron Valenchek. I was wondering if, Johnny, if you think that he'll be able to develop into like an all-Big 8 center, in his next 2 years, or...
I certainly do. We just got to get Ronnie more intense. And it's hard to do because he's such a nice guy,
He appears like he's a pretty good shot blocker, just from what I've seen. He anticipates well, and can jump pretty well.
I'll tell you what, he's going to get better and better. I remember Joe Barry Carroll when he was a freshman and when he was a sophomore, and he wasn't very good. And they had to take him out after 5 or 6, 8 minutes every time and rest him for 5 or 6 minutes and everything. He got to be a junior, he got a little better. And he played 15 minutes a half. And he played a little bit better. Then when he was a senior, he played 20 minutes a half, and he got pretty damn good. And I think that's the same thing Valenchek is going to do. We got to rest him a little and then put him back in. He got to be more intense. And I think he's much more intense than Joe Barry Carroll ever was.
Yeah.
Joe Barry's doing a pretty good job now in the pros.
How do you explain Robert Estes breakout and scoring 37 points when he's I don't know if he's had a disappointing year so far, but he
doesn't have a disappointing year. He's led us in rebounding. His defense has improved. He's scoring pretty well for us. He just hasn't shot exceptionally well, but
yeah.
I would say he's having a heck of a year.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, I meant from the shooting aspect.
Yeah, well, he hadn't shot well, but now in this last game he did. And if you'd have seen him tonight, man, he is tearing the nets down again. I hope he does that Wednesday.
Thanks for the call. And, John, we have a long-distance call here about recruitee visits. You're on Sportsline. Talk to Johnny Orr.
Yes, Coach Orr, I was wondering how many players you can bring in for official visits.
18.
18?
Yes, sir. That's the NCAA rule.
John, do you think that number should be cut back, held the same, increased?
That's good enough for me.
It's good enough for you.
Here's the way you look at that. If you're at Michigan, they like to have it cut back because they get all the players they want. If you're at Washington State, you want it increased because you can't get enough of them out there. And here, I think 18 is okay. We can survive with that. If I was going to do anything, I'd want it improved because of our population in relation to the number of good basketball players. See, when you take Michigan, they have 5 or 6 guys visit on their own, 10 a year visit on their own.
One more thing, Johnny.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to say I always enjoy watching your team hustle. They really move out there.
Well, they're really playing right now, and I'm so happy for them. Doggone, we got such a tough schedule right ahead of us here, but I don't think our team's going to give up, and we're going to battle until the final game and the final minute of the year. And I've never worked with a finer bunch of young men in my life.
We've got a call here, John, once again about recruiting. You're on Sportsline. Talk to Iowa State basketball coach Johnny Orr.
Yeah, Coach Orr, I believe when you first came to Iowa State that you mentioned the fact that if Coach Donnie Duncan in football was to call on you to help him in regard to football recruiting, that you might make a few calls.
I sure would.
For him. At this time, has he called on you, and have you made any calls for him?
No, he hasn't. And I think Donnie Duncan is a super person. I think he's a fine football coach, and I hope he stays at Iowa State as long as he coaches, because I think he's going to give you great teams here. I've never met a finer guy. I like Bo Schembechler tremendously. And I think this guy's made in the same mold, and you just got to give him a little time, and he's going to have good football here at Iowa State. And anytime he ever asks me to help him, I'll certainly help him.
John, a call about Eldon Miller. You're on Sportsline.
Hello, Johnny.
Yes, sir.
I'm calling from over at Newark, Ohio, just a little piece from Columbus.
I know where it is.
You've been over there. I think you were over at the Coliseum just 3 weeks ago.
Well, I was over there.
We haven't got as many good players over here, but I don't know whether you got to see the Columbus Journal, or you probably don't get it over there, but they're on old Eldon again already.
Well,
and seems like some of the fellows sort of want to get rid of him already.
Oh, gosh, I'll tell you what, that's a tough job, and I tell you, if Jesus Christ coached that team, they'd want to get rid of him.
Well, it's too bad that these boys that Eldon's got over there, they're in their 4th year, and it'd be nice if they could go through, but I've watched them play several games on TV, and sometimes it looks like they're not playing up to their potential.
Well, I'll tell you what, I have great respect for Eldon Miller, and I think he's a wonderful man. And I love his wife. She's a wonderful lady. And I think you just got to hang in there. Sometimes you get involved with some of those players, and maybe they're a little overrated. About 8 years ago, I had the same situation at Michigan. And they thought my players were better than they really were. and they thought we were going to win everything. We had a very disappointing year, and I had a lot of people that wanted to get rid of me at Michigan. Unfortunately, I had a guy like Don Cannon that I worked for who stuck behind me and stayed with me, and the next year we won the Big Ten championship.
John, we've got a call about Michael Payne, questioning whether you've ever seen Michael Payne play. Michael Payne, of course, is expected to come to the University of Iowa. Hi, you're on Sportsline.
I want to know if you ever seen him play.
I have not seen him, but my assistants have seen him, and they think he's a tremendous, tremendous player. And he's going to do a super, super job for Iowa. Lute doesn't have to worry for 4 more years about having a fine big center.
Well, John, we've got some more calls here about recruiting as the lights are just going crazy here on Sportsline. You're on Sportsline.
Hello, John?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was wondering, the paper mentioned the other day that you were at the Lincoln High School game. I wonder what you thought of Don Warren.
I thought he's a fine player. And I loved that team. I thought that team was tremendous. I was amazed that they were as good as they were from everything I've heard. And I'll tell you, if they were in Illinois or Indiana, they'd have publicity like you would not believe.
Well, they played, I think, in a tough conference in Iowa.
Well, they're very good. I was also impressed with Ware, and I was impressed with Frazier. In fact, I thought his whole first 5 was terrific, and I thought they did a great job on defense. They worked as hard on defense as any high school team I've ever seen. Really, they did, and I was very impressed with them. And I'm going to write Coach Carl a letter and tell him that I really enjoyed watching them play. I really did.
I think they played better games, but I think you're right. John Carl is one of the best coaches around.
Well, he must be, because I watched their position on defense. I watched how they did things, and I could tell certainly they were well coached.
Another call on recruiting, John. Seems like we just can't step away from that for the moment. Hi, you're on Sportsline.
The call ahead of me just asked the question I was going to ask. If he saw anything in the game the other night in Des Moines that he'd like to take back to Ames with him.
Well, I certainly enjoyed that team. I enjoyed the game very, very much. And I'll tell you, of all the players, I was impressed with Ware as much as any because of his size and everything. I asked a couple guys about him, and they said he hadn't played that well, but he played extremely well that night. And we're certainly going to take a couple more looks at him, I'll tell you that.
Hi, you're on Sportsline. Talk to Iowa State basketball coach Johnny Orr.
Johnny.
Yes, sir.
I wondered if you're going to play in that Mana VIP golf tournament.
I'm going to play.
Huh?
Yes, sir. George Forstner invited me.
Well, good. I'm sure glad to hear that. I think you can beat Lute Olson.
I'd hope to think I could beat Lute Olson.
Well, you better. I'll be down there watching you. It's a little tougher course than the Boone course, though.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm really looking forward to that. And Lute and George Forstner invited me, and I thank them very, very much. I'll be the only Cyclone there, and I think that's just a tremendous honor for them to invite me to come and play in that. I really do, and I thank them very, very much.
Go tear up the links, Johnny. Another call about recruiting. You're on Sportsline.
Yeah, Coach, I enjoyed the officials Saturday night that you could hear all through the arena.
Out of sight, weren't they?
Yeah, they did the best job I've seen all year.
Well, we're getting better and better. When we were out east, that's the best we had.
Mm-hmm.
They were the best.
I had a question on recruiting. How much does it help to have the successful wrestling team, the successful gymnastics team, and we think an up-and-coming football team? Does this cross-selling help you?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think when we can point out, the biggest thing, the wrestling and the gymnastics don't get enough publicity.
Mm-hmm.
You take in Chicago area, they don't even know whether we're wrestling or not, you see.
Mm-hmm.
And gymnastics, they had no idea whether we were having gymnastics team. But when we tell them that they're national champions or runners-up in the nation, that certainly impresses them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, the wrestling team Friday night, the victory over Iowa, definitely helped my team on Saturday night. There's no question about that.
They were really fired up.
Oh, they were fired. My team was so fired up I couldn't believe it.
Are you looking at anybody in the Kansas City area?
Yes, sir.
I know there's a lot of people down there and some good talent
we're
here.
looking at the 4 or 5 players down there.
Well, hope maybe we can get some company from Mr. Estes.
Well, I do too. I just hope we can land some. You know, that's where my wife's from.
Oh, is she?
She's a Kansas City native, and this week we're coming there. I don't have enough tickets for all my relatives.
Well, best of luck this week, Coach.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for calling on Sportsline. John, we've got to take a break right here, and once again, this will give you callers out there and listeners the opportunity to call in. We have approximately 11 more minutes to go on this special edition of Sportsline. 282-5111, the local number for Des Moines and towns and suburbs surrounding the capital city. Toll-free Watts line, good for the state of Iowa, 1-800-532-1111. And if we have any out-of-state callers or listeners, please go ahead and call us up. I think we can fit you in here. 515 is the area code. 282-5111 is the number you should call. Back in just a moment.
Recently, we've all been seeing a lot of advertising concerning Now accounts. And just in case you find all this confusing, the Yes Bank would like to take a moment to set things straight. First of all, Now is an abbreviation for Negotiable Order of Withdrawal, but it's really and very simply just like interest-bearing checking. Both banks and savings and loans can offer Now accounts and pay 5.25% annual interest on the daily balance. There is no difference in Now account interest rates between banks and savings and loans. So why choose the Yes Bank and our Now account called Interest Plus Checking? Because what's really important are things like know-how, technology, convenience, and experience. Let's face it, when we're talking about your money, experience counts, and that makes Interest Plus Checking a real value.
Yes, about the Yes Bank, 'cause yes, we're number one. You can count on your Yes Bank to rock the Iowa Des Moines. Yes!
Member FDIC.
This is Sportsline Talk to Johnny Orr, and we've got a question here about recruiting. Hi, you're on Sportsline.
Coach, when you recruit a high school player, what do you see in him that we fans do not see? I've seen a lot of real good high school players. I thought they were real good.
Yeah.
They did not make it in college. What do you see in a high school player that the fans fail to see?
Well, I'll tell you my feelings on that, and I'll tell you how when I started getting successful in the recruiting business, I heard Tex Winter one time, who used to coach at Kansas State, Marquette, and Northwestern.
Yeah, I was familiar with him, yeah.
And he said that he recruited athletes. He was looking for athletes. And about 9 years ago, that's what I started doing, recruiting athletes. And I was looking for players, regardless of their size, that could run and dribble and pass and shoot, and jump, and play defense. And it didn't make any difference to me how big they were. If they were 6'7" and could do it, of course, that was better. Or 7 foot. That was better. But I wanted great athletes. And that's how I became successful in college basketball, recruiting great athletes.
Well, that explains a lot, because I've seen a lot of what I thought were real good high school players, but they did not pan out in college. And I knew the coaches, the college coaches, must be seeing something that the fans are not seeing. Of course, the fans are not coaches.
Well, I'll tell you what, that recruiting is a very difficult job. I'm going to be honest with you.
I'm sure it is.
And there's a lot of mistakes made. I've made many mistakes in recruiting. Oh, goodness gracious.
Well, sometimes, John, you can't just judge on what a player does on the floor. It sometimes goes into mental attitude. You can't always read a player's mind either before they make up their mind to come to a university. They might have some things on their mind they might not be telling you about that later affect their play.
Well, there's many things. But I think you're looking for good kids and kids that will go to school and do the things they should do and
going to give you 100% effort. All we tell them for the scholarship is we want them to go to college, go to class, and give us 125% effort every time in any basketball-related activity. And that's hard to find guys like that. I'm going to tell you, that's hard. But I tell my assistants, you have to make a commitment. And you think a guy can play, you tell me. Because you're seeing them every time, and we'll take them. Now, if we don't win in 2 or 3 years, then you're going to be out of the business.
That's right. It's sort of a double-edged sword. You have to judge how well they can play on the basketball court. You've also got to read their mind in the sense of how committed they are to playing basketball and keeping up the grades.
Oh, that's right. And our school here is not easy. This isn't easy. So we have to get decent students.
John, we've got a call about an underrated team, which I read an interesting article about by Ron Malley in yesterday's Register. Pan Am, way down there, deep in the heart of Texas. Hi, you're on Sportsline.
Hi, John. We're followers of your ball team, have season tickets, and go up there to all the games, and we've really enjoyed you. My question is, would you consider going down and play Pan Am?
Well, I wouldn't mind going down there. I hear it's pretty nice down there.
We were down there and watched the Wichita game and saw Wichita come in there and lose their first game of the season, and I understand they've got a golf tournament, and they'd like very much for you to come play in that.
Oh, I know. I've been invited.
Yeah, I know you have.
It's just the fact that, doggone it, when they've invited me, I've gotten it too late, and I've had other commitments. But if I'm ever free, I'm going to go play.
Is that right?
Yes, sir. And I'll tell you what, Abe Lemons, he told me a good story about Pan Am. You know, he was the basketball coach and athletic director there, you know. And he said he and his wife used to go to the Rio Grande and just sit there and watch him when he recruited his swimming team. And he'd see those wetbacks, they'd swim there, you know. He'd pick the best ones, and then they'd get in the pools, and unless the pools run north and south, hell, they couldn't swim.
Well, I just wondered if you was interested in going down there and play. I know they'd love to have you.
Well, I'd like to go down and play.
It would be a great opportunity to get a tan, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. I wouldn't mind going down and playing 2 or 3 games in December or January.
Okay, we've got a call here, John, about hardship cases. Hi, you're on Sportsline.
Hi, Mike. Coach Orr, I'd like to know, could you tell me what constitutes a hardship case?
Anything.
Anything.
In basketball, there's no such thing, really.
Well, that's what I've heard.
No, there isn't any such thing. If a guy wants to declare hardship, he just declares it. And
they don't have any set rules?
He wants to go pro.
They don't have any set rules, then?
No, ma'am.
Well,
there are no set rules for that.
Coaches
and
don't
anybody can be, you can be a millionaire and declare hardship.
Well, coaches then don't have any protection against good
none
players.
whatsoever. And I'm going to tell you what. This year, I thought Herschel Walker was going to go hardship. You know, in the pros for football, that kid from Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And if he had, I was anxious to see how things were going to go.
Probably, John, the NFL would not accept him because, as we pointed out during the break, why the NFL requires a player to complete 4 years of college.
They couldn't do that, see? They couldn't do that because when Spencer Haywood did that, the judge in California said that you've got to give him his rights, and they'd have to let him play. But Rozelle has been much stronger than the NBA commissioners, and that's why that's happened in our league in basketball.
Well, do you think this is fair?
Oh, I think it's going to change. I'm just waiting for the day when it comes.
Well, it makes you pretty sick when you see a player come along and then he leaves.
Well, I think you're going to see one of these times. I would be amazed if Herschel Walker stays at Georgia 4 years. And then I'm going to see what happens. Because when that comes out, the judge is going to say Herschel Walker's got to be allowed to make a living.
We'll just see what happens on that. We've got some more calls waiting. I can comment on that Herschel Walker deal. It seems as if he is committed, John, to staying 4 years because he wants to major in criminology, and I think the only way he can do that is to complete 4 years at Georgia, but that's something we could take up perhaps at another time. We have a call here about recruiting. You're on Sportsline.
Yeah, I have 2 questions here. If Coach Orr has seen Boise Winners play.
Oh, I have, yeah.
If he's interested in Iowa State.
No,
Yeah. And then I was wondering about Johnny Robinson's cousin that plays your names, if he's going to be a big-time player or not.
well, I think he might be. We just have to wait and see how he develops.
Uh-huh.
But I'll tell you, Boise Winters is interested in Iowa.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, I see he scored 61 points here.
My goodness,
last
he
week,
scored
so.
57, he scored 53, 59, and he's a great player. My goodness gracious, he's a great player.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you for calling and talking to Johnny Orr. John, a call here about the scheduling of Iowa State. You're on Sportsline.
Hello, John.
Hi.
Do you know a man named Lawrence Skippins? When you were in school?
I sure do.
I'm him.